Most men dream of success, of strength, of influence, yet most will never taste it. They will labor, hope, and pray, only to fail. Why? Because they do not understand the rules of power, the nature of man, nor the cruelty of fortune. In this lesson, inspired by the wisdom of Niccolò Machiavelli, we will uncover the truth, why most people are doomed to fail at life, and how you might escape their fate. Mankind is weak not because fate demands it, but because most men accept weakness as their condition. To live blindly, without strategy, without understanding the true engines of power, that is the doom of the many. Let us examine the causes of their failure. Why do most people never succeed in life? The answer is simple. They do not understand reality. They live in dreams, in illusions, in a world that does not exist. They believe that effort alone guarantees reward, that honesty alone ensures trust, and that patience alone will lead them to fortune. But this is not how the world works. The world is not governed by fairness, nor does it distribute success like alms to beggars. The world rewards those who know how to bend it to their advantage. Most men are deceived because they want to be deceived. They cling to comforting lies. They tell themselves that if they study hard, if they work hard, if they are good citizens, then success will naturally follow. But society is not built to reward the obedient. It is built to be ruled by those who know how to manipulate obedience. To rise, you must learn to use appearances, not just actions. For appearances are what the majority will always believe. Look at those who dominate in politics, in business, in war. Did they reach their position by being the most virtuous, or did they rise because they understood the nature of men, their desires, their fears, their weaknesses, and used them? Like levers, the man who believes that honesty alone brings victory will be devoured by the man who knows how to lie when necessary. The man who believes patience alone will bring fortune will be crushed by the man who dares to seize opportunity when it appears. Most people never succeed because they mistake effort for strategy. They work like oxen, laboring endlessly, but without direction, without cunning, without a clear grasp of how power actually operates. They are like soldiers marching bravely into battle without ever studying the art of war. And so, no matter how hard they fight, they are slaughtered by those who planned the ambush. Another reason men fail is that they place faith in morality rather than results. They believe the world respects goodness, but the world respects only strength. Goodness without strength is mocked. Kindness without authority is exploited. And honesty without cunning is suicidal. The masses are blind to this truth, and so they fail. They demand that life reward their innocence, but life is not a benevolent master. It is a merciless battlefield. There is also the matter of fear. Success requires risk, and risk terrifies the majority. They cling to security, to predictability, to the comfort of the familiar, even as it chains them to mediocrity. They would rather live small lives without danger than reach for greatness and risk failure. And so they remain ordinary, not because they lack talent, but because they lack the courage to use it. The rare man who succeeds is the one who dares to step beyond safety, who sees that fortune favors the bold, not the timid. Most men are also slaves to time. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect conditions, the perfect opportunity, and in waiting, life passes them by. They do not understand that fortune is like a river. When it floods, it destroys everything in its path. But when it is calm, the wise man builds channels to control its power. Success belongs to those who act when fortune opens a small door, not those who wait for the door to open wide. Then there is ignorance. The ignorant man believes the world is simple, that truth is plain, that people mean what they say. He takes words at face value, promises as guarantees, and appearances as reality. And for this, he is deceived again and again. Success demands suspicion, calculation, and the ability to see what lies beneath the surface. Most people do not train their minds to see these layers, and so they are forever the victims of those who do. And perhaps the final reason why most never succeed is because they do not know themselves. They wander through life without clear ambition, without clarity of purpose, without mastery of their own nature. They do not know their strengths, so they fail to use them. They do not know their weaknesses, so their enemies exploit them. A man without self-knowledge is like a city without walls, easy to conquer, impossible to defend. This is why most people never succeed in life. They believe the world owes them reward for their virtue. They mistake effort for mastery. They prefer comfort over risk, illusions over truth, morality over results. And they never take the time to understand either the world or themselves. The consequence is inevitable. They remain small, powerless, forgotten, while those who learn the true laws of fortune rise above them and rule. Why do most people stay weak? The answer is not that they are born without strength, but that they choose to remain without it. Weakness is not always a condition of the body, but a condition of the spirit. Men surrender to weakness not because it is forced upon them, but because they embrace it. They nurture it, they defend it as if it were a virtue. Observe the common man. He avoids struggle, avoids hardship, avoids pain. He calls this comfort, he calls it peace, he even dares to call it happiness. But in truth, it is nothing but surrender. For every day that a man rejects discomfort, he also rejects growth. Muscles are built through resistance, character is forged through difficulty, and power is shaped through adversity. Yet the majority despise adversity as if it were poison, and so they never grow strong. Weakness thrives because men deceive themselves into believing they can't live without strength. They build lives that depend on others, on rulers, on employers, on governments, on systems. They give up responsibility for their own survival and tell themselves it is safer this way. But what is safety that depends entirely on another man's will? It is slavery disguised as security. The man who cannot stand alone is always a servant, even if he wears the mask of freedom. Another reason most stay weak is fear. Fear of failure, fear of ridicule, fear of pain. These fears govern their choices. Instead of facing them, men avoid them. They stay in the same job they hate. They keep the same unchallenging routines. They accept lives of mediocrity rather than risking the humiliation of defeat. But every great man, every ruler, every conqueror has tasted failure and pain. It is through pain that the will is sharpened, and through failure that the path to success is revealed. He who avoids pain avoids progress. Weakness is also cultivated by indulgence. Men cannot deny themselves. They are ruled by their appetites, by their laziness, by their cravings for comfort and pleasure. They consume endlessly food, entertainment, distractions, while their strength withers. A man who cannot command himself cannot command anything else. Discipline is the foundation of power, yet most men despise it. They call it too strict, too harsh, too unpleasant, and so they remain chained to their impulses, while the disciplined man chains the world to his will. But perhaps the most subtle form of weakness lies in imitation. Most men follow the crowd, thinking it will protect them. They adopt the values of the majority, the habits of the majority, the beliefs of the majority, because it is easier than thinking for themselves. They fear standing apart because standing apart invites judgment, and judgment terrifies the weak. But the crowd has never been strong. The crowd survives only because of the few individuals who possess courage, cunning, and vision. The weak stay weak because they follow followers. Consider also the weakness of excuses. The weak Man always has a reason for why he cannot act. He tells himself he lacks the time, the resources, the talent, the connections. He convinces himself that the world is unfair, and so it is pointless to try. In truth, excuses are nothing more than a mask for cowardice. The strong man finds a way, even when the way is hidden. The weak man finds an excuse, even when the path is open before him. Weakness also flourishes because men confuse humility with submission. They believe it is noble to bow their heads, to accept their condition, to endure their chains. They call this patience, they call it morality, but it is weakness wearing the disguise of virtue. True humility is strength restrained. Submission is strength surrendered. Most men do not understand the difference, and so they remain powerless, proud of their servitude. At last, weakness survives because it is easy. To be strong requires effort every day, requires sacrifice, requires vigilance. To be weak requires nothing. It is effortless, it is natural, it is the default state of man, but it is precisely because it is easy that it is worthless. Gold is rare because it is difficult to find. Strength is rare because it is difficult to create. The masses will always remain weak because the masses always choose the easier path. And the easier path never leads upward. It only leads in circles, keeping them where they are, beneath the feet of those who dare to rise. Why are most people powerless? Because they do not understand the nature of power itself. They imagine power as something granted to them, bestowed like a gift from a ruler, from fortune, from circumstance. But true power is never given, it is taken. Those who wait for it will wait forever. Those who demand it without preparation will be crushed. And those who understand how to seize it, shape it, and hold it are the ones who rule while the rest remain subjects. The first reason most people remain powerless is because they lack control over themselves. How can a man who cannot command his own mind, his own impulses, his own desires, expect to command others? He who is ruled by anger will be manipulated by provocation. He who is ruled by greed will be bought by gold. He who is ruled by lust will be conquered by temptation. The man who has no mastery of himself is already a servant, even if he believes he is free. Power demands discipline, yet most reject discipline. They cannot rise early without complaint. They cannot hold their tongue when silence would be wise. They cannot deny themselves pleasures that weaken them. They confuse freedom with indulgence, but indulgence only enslaves. A man who does not master himself is mastered by those who know how to pull his strings. And so, the majority remain powerless not because others are stronger, but because they themselves are easily ruled. Another cause of powerlessness is dependency. Most men build lives that rely on others to survive. They depend on their employers for wages, on governments for stability, on leaders for direction. They become like children who cannot stand alone, forever reaching out for guidance, forever begging for support. But dependence is weakness, and weakness invites domination. The man who relies on others for everything must accept whatever they decide to give him, whether it is enough or not. Power is not in the hands of the one who needs, but in the hands of the one who is needed. Most people are powerless because they fear conflict. They want peace at any cost. They avoid confrontation, even when confrontation is necessary. They silence themselves rather than speak truths that might offend. They obey orders even when they despise them, and in doing so, they train themselves to submit. Power belongs to those willing to face conflict, to endure hostility, to impose their will despite resistance. The powerless man seeks comfort in harmony, but harmony without strength is an illusion, and it collapses the moment a stronger force appears. Then there is ignorance. Most men never study the nature of power. They do not read history. They do not observe politics. They do not analyze the movements of men. They think power is luck or charisma or fortune. They do not see the patterns, the strategies, the methods by which rulers rise and empires are built. Power is a science as much as it is an art, but the masses remain blind. They live only in the moment, never seeing the larger game that is being played around them. And so, they are pawns moved by hands they never notice. Powerlessness also comes from hesitation. The world belongs to those who act swiftly, decisively, with boldness. Yet most men delay. They wait for certainty, for guarantees. Perfect timing, they say to themselves, now is not the moment. But while they wait, opportunities vanish. Power is not taken by the hesitant, it is taken by the bold. Fortune, like a woman, favors those who seize her with aggression, not those who wait timidly at her door. Consider also illusion of morality. Many remain powerless because they believe power itself is corrupt, that seeking it is evil, that rejecting it makes them noble. But what nobility is there in weakness? What honor is there in being ruled? The man who refuses to pursue power in the name of virtue condemns himself to servitude. He imagines he is pure, but in truth he is powerless, and his so-called purity is nothing but the excuse of a coward unwilling to fight for strength. Finally, most people are powerless because they lack ambition. Their desires are small. They are satisfied with survival, with comfort, with mediocrity. They aim only for enough to live quietly, and in doing so, they guarantee that greater men will dominate them. Ambition is dangerous, yes, but without ambition there is only stagnation. The man with no vision can never lead, and so he is destined to follow. Those who dream small will always live beneath those who dare to dream large. Why do most people fail at life? It is because they treat life as if it were gentle, forgiving, and fair. They walk through it unprepared, believing it is a path through a garden, when in truth it is a battlefield soaked in blood. Life is not merciful. It rewards the strong, the cunning, vigilant, and it devours those who do not understand its nature. Most people fail because they prepare for peace in a world that is constantly at war. They believe security is permanent, that order will last forever, that the rules they follow today will still protect them tomorrow. But fortune changes her face without warning, and those who are unready are swept away like leaves in the wind. History is littered with men who thought stability would shield them, only to be crushed when chaos returned. The successful man knows that peace is temporary, and so he prepares for conflict even in moments of calm. Failure also comes from blindness to human nature. Men deceive themselves into thinking that others are honest, loyal, and kind. They put trust where suspicion is needed, they show mercy where firmness is demanded, and they open their hearts to those who only wish to exploit them. Most people cannot accept that men are selfish, envious, and cruel when given the chance, and so they are betrayed, manipulated, and destroyed. The few who succeed are those who expect treachery, who study men as hunters study prey, and who strike first when danger appears. Another reason most fail is their lack of strategy. They live day to day, reacting instead of planning, hoping instead of preparing. They waste their youth in idleness, their strength in distraction, their opportunities in hesitation. And when they finally realize that time has passed them by, it is too late. A man without strategy is like a soldier without a weapon. Brave perhaps, but doomed the moment the battle begins. Success belongs not to those who merely desire it, but to those who plot for it, who anticipate obstacles, who see 10 steps ahead while others stumble in the dark. Men also fail because they confuse luck with fortune. They see small victories as signs that life favors them, and they become careless, arrogant, complacent. But fortune is like a river, calm today, violent tomorrow. The wise man builds dams and channels while the river is still gentle, but the foolish man dances at its banks, unaware that the flood is coming. Failure is often nothing more than the punishment of arrogance, the consequence of ignoring fortune's changing tide. Another cause of failure is weakness in the face of hardship. Most people cannot endure pain. They collapse at the first sign of struggle. They retreat at the first taste of defeat. They believe success should come quickly, easily, without suffering. But nothing great is built without cost. Rome was not raised in comfort, nor was power ever seized by men who fled from difficulty. Failure claims those who expect the path to be smooth, while the victorious are those who endure storms and keep moving forward. Men also fail because they try to please everyone. They fear judgment, they fear criticism, they fear being hated. But he who seeks to please all ends up pleasing none, and he who avoids enemies gains no true allies. Power demands that a man accept hostility, that he accept being feared, that he accept being opposed. Yet the weak man longs to be loved by all, and in chasing universal approval, he sacrifices strength, respect, and authority. Finally, most people fail because they never dare to become more than ordinary. They are content with survival, with routine, with comfort. They avoid risk, they reject ambition, they silence the voice inside them that demands greatness. They look at the heights of power and tell themselves it is not for them, that such lives belong only to the chosen few. But in truth, it is their own refusal, their own cowardice, their own surrender that condemns them. Life does not deny them success. They deny it to themselves. And so we return to the truth that most men will never face. They will never succeed, for they clothe themselves in illusions. They will remain weak, for they fear discipline more than they fear failure. They will stay powerless, for they surrender control of themselves and place it in the hand of others, and they will fail at life, for they prepare for peace in a world that demands war. But understand this, none of these fates are inevitable, they are chosen. Every man has within him the capacity for strength, for power, for success. Yet most refuse to pay the price. They prefer comfort to conquest, security to sovereignty, hope to strategy, and so their lives end as they began, ordinary, forgotten, ruled by others. The few who rise above the many are those who see clearly. They strip away illusions, they embrace discipline, they master themselves, they study the nature of men, and they act boldly when others hesitate. These men are not lucky, they are prepared. They are not chosen, they choose themselves. Remember this, fortune does not favor the good, nor the patient, nor the weak. She favors the bold, the cunning, the strong, and in a world where most are doomed to fail, you must decide whether you will live as one of the many or rise as one of the few.